Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land of which we record. We pay our respects to elders, past and present, who are part of the world's oldest continuing culture and the first storytellers. We acknowledge the importance of supporting health for all peoples, now and in the future. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are warned that this podcast may contain the voices and names of people who've passed. Welcome to the HeartKids podcast. Join us to hear stories of Australians affected by childhood heart conditions. On this podcast, you'll hear from heart kids and teens, heart adults, parents, carers and family members, cardiologists and other health professionals. My name is Rachael Knowles and I'm one of your hosts. I'm a journalist and I live with a congenital heart condition. I was born with tricuspid artresia and had Fontan surgery at the age of 2. I'm excited to walk with you on this journey as we share experiences and learn more about those of us living with childhood heart conditions.
Today I'm chatting with Annabel, a 23-year-old who has grown up with tricuspid artresia. By the age of 5, she had undergone 23 operations, including 3 open heart surgeries. But being a heart kid hasn't stopped Annabel from living a very busy and very full life, graduating from uni, travelling with friends, and now working as a town planner in Sydney.
I do think if a teenager has the opportunity to visit their GP or any other doctor, even something as small as your optometrist without your parents, it will help. One of my first GP appointments alone was just to get a cardiologist referral. It was something as small as that. Like if you do all the little things before you have to transition to what you can do by yourself, it will make it easier.
Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here. The first question is always, where are you joining us from?
I'm joining from my home in Sydney's Inner West.
Love the Inner West. It's so nice. I'm on the east, so I don't do far apart. Well, look, I'm really interested. Can you tell me a little bit about kind of your heart condition and when you were diagnosed?
Yeah, so I have tricuspid atresia. So basically the tricuspid valve didn't form properly when I was in the womb. My parents first found out that I had a heart condition, I think it was like somewhere between 18 to 24 weeks when my mum was pregnant. They weren't really sure what it meant for me for the future back then, obviously. But yeah, so pretty much for most people, blood will flow in and out of each side of your heart, whereas mine flows in and out of the same side due to something called Fontan.
I'm also a tricuspid atresia baby.
Oh,
and
really?
I had my Fontan in 1999. I had 26 years like a week ago.
Oh,
A
wow.
little celebration. This is my next question for you because I know that you've had a lot of operations, and I was about to ask you, like, do you have like a special day that you got your Fontan? But you've had 23 operations before the age of 5. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so 3 of them were open heart surgeries. I'm not entirely sure what most of them actually entailed. I guess I was quite lucky that it was all before the age of 5, so it's not like I really remember it. I remember parts of being in hospital, but I only really remember the good times. I don't really remember any of the negative experiences, which I guess I know a lot of people aren't as fortunate. But I do know that my first operation was when I was like a couple hours old, and then my last was at like 6 months, 4.5, so 6 months before I started kindergarten.
Yeah, that's a huge amount of, I suppose, medical care in such a short amount of time. But I totally understand like your parents wanting to do that before you started school and so you didn't have to miss out on anything. Do you remember much about what recovery was like for you when you were little? And I suppose any of those early surgeries, have they had an impact on you as you've grown?
I don't fully remember what recovery was like. My parents said that I was tired a lot. So I have a younger brother, and he was always very energetic as a child, whereas I was the complete opposite. I was always tired, always was fatigued. But because of all my heart conditions, I guess it hasn't, like as an adult, it hasn't really had an impact on me, mainly because I don't remember a lot of it. But I know when I was younger, doing any like sports and stuff, it would impact me a lot because I was still going through those surgeries. I couldn't keep up with a lot of the other kids, and a lot of the times like my lips would go blue from overexerting myself. But like now, I guess that doesn't really impact me. I don't really have fears of hospitals and stuff, but yeah, like obviously it impacted me when I was younger, but my parents do, and they obviously said that it was watching me grow up and watching my brother grow up were two very different experiences because of how sick I was.
Yeah. Which is always, I think it's like a weird place to be when, and I'm sure that you would feel this, and I get this all the time where like I'll see my grandparents, or I'll see somebody who knew me as a kid, and they'll talk about how sick I used to be and how healthy I look now. And being told those things about what you were like when you're little and how sick you were, that not remembering that is really weird. It's a really odd experience, isn't it?
It's really odd, especially with people who I obviously knew me when I was younger, but I don't really remember now. And they're like, oh, the last time I saw you, you were probably 8 and you were still recovering. It's good to see you now and everything you've done now. And it's like, whoa, I don't really remember being that bad. Yeah, it's weird. I was fortunate though, that my grandmother worked at the adults hospital across the road when I was in hospital. So she was always there.
When did you and your family kind of get connected with HeartKids? Like when was that first time?
I think it was when I was first in hospital. I was in a ward with a bunch of other babies with heart conditions, and HeartKids was helping a lot of other families in the ward. So I guess that's how my parents really connected to them. And then from there, we went to a lot of HeartKids events growing up, like a lot of their Christmas events or their hospital events. I do know my parents connected to HeartKids very early on. I want to say within the first 12 months of me being born, because my birthday's in February, and by that Christmas, they were already going to HeartKids events.
Love that. That's really nice. And I imagine like that's like when you're in that situation, it's always nice to have people that can support and help. You talk about being really, really young when this all happened. Were you aware of, I suppose, a support system that has kind of, came from those early days to now? Like, what does your support network look like? Are there HeartKids that are also involved in your support system?
I know a lot more HeartKids now than I did when I was younger. When I was younger, my support system mainly consisted of my family and my friends. It's actually really funny that my best friend, we've been best friends since we were 4. Her older brother also is a HeartKid, which is really random, but we didn't connect through that. We connected because we met first day of kindergarten. But I guess having friends that understood because there were more than one of us was really helpful. And then when I was older, I started going to the 2 feet and a heartbeat walks pretty much every year. And then I volunteered 1 year. And during that is when I got to actually meet a lot more people with heart conditions and HeartKids, or siblings or parents of HeartKids. And I connected to people a lot more than when I was younger.
Something that I love asking people, and I'd be really interested as to what like your answer is, because I think something that I find in common is when we're really young and we're told about our heart, the language that I was told to use was I had a hole in my heart. What did you understand of your heart condition, and how did you talk about it with other people? What was the phrasing that you used, and what did you know of what your body was like?
I guess when I was younger, obviously I didn't fully understand what it was, but I used to tell people just that half my heart would work, because that's all I really understood to a certain degree. And people would often be like, what do you mean? And then I would just be like, I don't know, only half my heart works. But I guess it is interesting. I have talked to other HeartKids about that, and they all explain these like really random things. I think it is quite interesting, but I would just tell people only half my heart worked. Yeah.
Do you still say that to people now?
Yeah, to people who don't understand. Sometimes it's just easier to say that than trying to explain it.
I'd be saying to you, I was like, oh, I have half a heart, or like half of my heart works. So I was born with a hole in my heart, so only half of it works. I still use that. I would probably use that forever.
Yeah, me too, probably. It's the easiest way to explain it to people.
It is. I feel like people get nervous and like, oh, I have tricuspid artresia and I have a fontan bypass. Those words are so big and scary. People just kind of shut down. Whereas if it's like, I have a hole in my heart and I use half of it, super easy to comprehend. In learning to like say that to people, I know that it's really interesting. Like when you're disclosing a heart condition to someone, like it's kind of, everybody reacts really differently. Have you learnt, I suppose, or have you changed the way that you've spoken about your heart condition because of the reactions that you've received?
I guess a little bit. I hadn't until I guess started work, only because I had obviously in high school when I would just tell people it was just kind of like, oh, that's a really weird, interesting fact. But when I started work, I adapted the way because when I started my first town planning job, and I said that I had only half my heart worked when I had to declare any health issues and stuff. I kept getting I got a weird reaction, but I think it was more because it was just worried that whether it would impact work or not. So now I have to be very detailed in the sense when it comes to anything work or like work related, because it's like I was born with a heart condition, but it doesn't impact me now, and this is the reasons why. Whereas if it's someone outside of it, I just like, yeah, I have half a heart, but it's whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree where it's like, we kind of like, oh, well, I suppose I have to tell my workplace this, but also the language I would normally use, you're asking a lot of questions, like, how do I do this? How do I navigate that? And I think that's a really interesting like conversation for heart kids that kind of start their careers, how to disclose to a workplace, because it's a totally different conversation to just regular
Yeah.
people.
And it's totally different to like obviously I don't know what it would be like for someone who was trying to describe if they had like a learning disability or a condition that would impact their work, because it's like mine doesn't, but I still need to declare it. Whereas I can't imagine what it'd be like if it did impact your work, how much harder that would be.
Exactly. I had like a situation 2 years ago where I was traveling to a really remote area in Australia.
Mm.
And it was like one of the places where like these very poisonous snakes lives, and we kind of had to disclose any medical stuff. And so many of my colleagues were like, what do you mean? Like, I've known you for so long. It's like, I don't even know you.
Oh, that's so funny.
But everything went well. There was no snakes, which is great. But I wanted to ask you, I know that you used to be a competitive dancer and a swimmer.
Yeah.
But I know that you also said that, when you were younger, you were very fatigued and quite tired. So I suppose tell me a little bit about your competitive dancing and swimming era, and I suppose what you loved about that.
Well, so with dance, I started dance at the age of 3. Obviously, when I was still going through all of my HeartKids stuff. And then it became more serious when I was about 8, to where my body could handle it a lot better. I guess with dance, I loved dance. It was the best. I didn't actually quit dance because of my heart. I had to reduce some of the stuff because of it, but I didn't quit it. I ended up dancing until I was 16. And then I kind of just got bored of it and I left, which is quite normal for teenagers. But with swimming, I started swimming lessons also during my whole heart journey back in the beginning. And then I think when I was maybe about 6 or 7, I started swimming competitively. And then by the time I was 9, I was in squad. So I was like actually properly in intense classes competing against other people, which was fun. It was really exciting and entertaining. I was in that for about a year, and then I had a cardiologist appointment where I was told that I wasn't allowed to compete or be in squad anymore, which was probably one of the first things that I remember impacting me about my health, because it was kind of like, oh, how come I have to quit but no one else does? But my cardiologist kind of explained it that unlike when you're running or dancing or at the gym, when you get tired in the water, you can't feel it because of how like the buoyancy of the water. So I wouldn't know when I was too tired to actually stop, which would then cause problems in case I did get too tired in a competition or my heart just couldn't handle it. That hit me. That hit me a lot. But I guess it took me a while to realize that it didn't mean I had to quit swimming. It just meant I had to quit competing, which was actually okay. Like because my siblings were all still swimming intensely at that time. And I would just sit there watching them. And then when I came to the realization that, yeah, I don't actually have to quit, I just have to not do what I wanted to do, I still kept swimming. Not obviously in my squad team, but yeah, like I just got to still keep doing what I wanted to do, even if it wasn't the way I wanted to do it. Yeah.
That's a massive lesson to have to learn that age too. But what I really love is, and I think it's something that a lot of us struggle with, is this well, if we can't do it, that's annoying and I don't want to do it at all. But actually be like, no, I like this. How can I change it so I can still have it in my life? I think that's huge to do that young.
Yeah. I think if it had been with dance, I probably, if I at that age was just told I couldn't dance anymore, I don't think I would have had the same reaction as I did to swimming. But yeah, it was pretty, like when I think back at it now, I'm like, oh, I'm still a really strong swimmer because of that. If I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't probably be as strong as I am.
Yeah, and like swimming is so good for your cardiac and your like lungs. Like it's one of the best sports that you can do. So the fact that like, also I can barely swim. So the fact that you competitive swimming is so impressive to me. So impressive. In terms of, I suppose, from moving from there, so you transitioned from Westmead to RPA.
Yes.
I feel like everybody has a lot of different experiences of the transition process. What was it like for you?
Honestly, it was really easy. I'd heard other stories of people like struggling with it, and I downloaded the HeartKids app to help with transitions because obviously they were trialing it during the time I was transitioning from Westmead to RPA. But I think it really wasn't as scary as people kind of explained it to be. I went from a really lovely, sweet cardiologist, Dr. Scholler at Westmead, to pretty much a really sweet, generous cardiologist at RPA, Professor Sellermeyer. So it wasn't a big difference. I think, honestly, in terms of transitioning, I struggled more transitioning from the pediatric dentist to the adult dentist than I did from Westmead to RPA. But I think that was mainly just because I'm not sure, like the dentist I was just very comfortable with the dentist, whereas I went through like 3 different dentists whilst transitioning from childhood to adult. But yeah, I don't know. It was a lot easier as well because it meant that I got to just do everything by myself, which was more fun and it was more independent. Yeah.
Nice. That's what I was going to ask you next. I was like, I think there is that like part of the transition is yes, getting a whole new health team, but it's also like having to take ownership of your health, which can be really daunting. It sounds like you kind of loved it. How did you go taking ownership of and managing your health?
I did kind of like it. I'm very independent, so I do like that it's all to myself. Before, obviously, I was still there and I still heard about everything, but it was the fact that now I had to actually completely concentrate and take notes to give back to my parents. But so I found it a bit more interesting because I'd also been going to my GP by myself since I was 14 because my GP is also right near RPA. So doing the cardiologist appointment didn't feel that different. I guess it felt normal. It felt more normal because I'd feel towards the end of my Westmead appointments, I'd feel quite awkward with my parents being there considering that was the only appointment that they would actually join me in, which I think is really good. Like I know some other kids who, not heart kids, but other kids with like lung issues whose parents went to all of their specialist appointments and their GP appointments up until, and then they struggled. But I think because I was given that independence with my GP, it became a lot easier when it came for the cardiologist transition. And yeah, I like taking care of my own health. I find it so much easier because I know what's going on.
Yeah. What would your advice be to teenagers who are preparing for that shift, who are kind of like maybe taking in the like information that you read in the chats about, oh, like it can be a really daunting experience. What was like do you think that it's the fact that you went to the GP helped you more? Like, would you recommend doing that? Or what are some things or tips or tricks that you think really helped that others could consider?
Well, I think the first thing is if you're going to view it as daunting, then it's going to be daunting. Like, it's really not. It's just going from one professional to another. It's not like you're going from a professional to someone who doesn't know what they're doing. Like, I think that one is a mentality thing. It's like if you read all of these messages from other kids who say that it's daunting and it's scary, you obviously can still feel scared. But yeah, I do think if a teenager has the opportunity to visit their GP or any other doctor, whether it's GP, even something as small as your optometrist without your parents, it will help. One of my first GP appointments alone was just to get a cardiologist referral for Westmead. It was something as small as that. Like if you do all the little things before you have to transition to what you can do by yourself, it will make it easier. If you realize that it's actually not as scary as you think, you're not going to be as nervous when you're there.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think, taking little appointments before, because I think The
Yeah.
cardiologist seems so high stakes when you're a heart kid. Like, it seems like you have to like know everything. You have to ask the right questions, and you only get one of these, once a year or whatever.
Yeah.
So you have to really make sure. But I totally agree. Like, doing the little appointments, like, going to the doctor, going to the dentist, like going to the optometrist, getting your confidence up, and then hitting the cardiologist chair. I think that's a great way.
Yeah.
Now, I'm really interested. So you have finished uni, you've traveled, you work full time in town planning, which is really cool. And obviously, we do all the things, but there are times where we're challenged with our heart condition, but to do all the things is insane. And I'm really like interested to know what has motivated you, or what's been kind of like guiding you in, this early adult life, this like working full time, finishing uni, like what's been something that's driving you?
I guess it's like, well, firstly, and I think this is just for anyone, heart kid or not, you shouldn't be afraid to do what you want to do, like, and follow your dreams, right? I know it's like as cliche as it sounds, but in high school, my all-time favorite subject at school was geography. Originally, I wanted to be a nutritionist, which was so random, but my favorite subject was geography. And when I talked to my careers advisor, she was like, you could go to uni and do town planning. It's pretty much what you love. So I looked into that, and then I went to uni. It was good. And obviously I was in uni during COVID lockdown, so that was a bit,
Oof, that's rough. That's rough.
but it was still a lot of fun. Yeah, what motivated me is just doing what I love. Like when I went traveling, first time I went traveling alone without my parents out of Australia was to Europe at the start of last year, so during winter, Europe winter, to celebrate finishing uni with all my uni friends. It was a lot of fun. It was very, very, very cold, but it was a lot of fun. And I guess like obviously when I go traveling or when I do something like that, I have to take into consideration a lot more than my friends do. Like I need to remember my heart medicine or anything else related to my heart condition that I just can't forget. But I guess like that still shouldn't stop you. Like it shouldn't stop anyone. Like I don't see why it should. You just got to remember a couple more things, and you got to be a bit more careful about what you do. But yeah, I guess that's kind of what's motivated me. It's like, don't let anything hold you back from doing what you want to do.
Yeah. I think like something that I can see a lot in like particularly like young heart adults is this. I think when we're younger, this like heart condition, you feel very different to other people, and you feel like frustrated that you're not, quote unquote normal or can't keep up. But we get into like early adult life, and it becomes something that like, because I think we manage our own health and we become kind of proud of it. And it's like, yeah, I'm going to do the same thing as everybody else, but I'm also going to look after this stuff because I know that that's what I have to do, but I don't feel bad about that anymore. That's just something that I have to do, and I'm okay with it. Do you feel that now as an adult?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like as a kid, there are a lot of things that kind of stopped you from doing a lot of things. Whereas now, yeah, I completely feel that way. Like going to Europe and having fun, there were like pretty much 99% of all of the activities I could still do. Obviously, I couldn't run up the stairs to the top of some tower that we climbed as fast as my friends, but I could still do it. Like, you just got to work around it. Like, I think there was only one thing to where I was like, nah, I just can't. But that's okay, because I got to go and do other things. I got to go and explore some other cafes whilst my friends were doing that. And one of my friends didn't even go because he doesn't have like the physical, he didn't want to. Like, I just feel like, yeah, it's interesting, but as an adult, it's more freeing and it's more fun than as a kid, I guess.
Yeah. You're more comfortable with kind of who you are, and you make good friendships around you that are like supportive of who you are as well.
Yeah, exactly.
What has been like traveling and finishing uni and like particularly, having to not compete in sport and having that lesson really, really early on in life? I'm really interested, like, what is something that you have learned about yourself that you're really proud of?
I guess I can do more than I think. Obviously, quitting sport, that knocked me a lot. And I struggled to get back into a lot of sport. And then, doing uni I wasn't impacted with my heart for uni. It was COVID. Being like, oh, maybe I can't because of COVID lockdown, but it's like I can do more than I believe that I can. And I guess there's also other things that I do get as a heart kid, which also help me found those kind of things. Like I got to participate in a exercise study, which also really helped me figure that out. Was it last year? No, the year before. I participated in the CH Fit study. That really also helped me realize, oh yeah, I can do a lot more than I think that I can. And these are the ways throughout my childhood or my young adulthood that I've seen that I can do it and why I can do it. Yeah. I can do a lot more than I think that I can.
I did the CH Fit study as well, and I had the
Really?
exact same learning. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
all right.
It was so much fun.
It was so interesting.
It was so
Right, where I was
fun.
like, oh, actually, like, I'm getting stronger and I can run and I can do this. And here I was thinking that, like, no, body can't do that. It was a really great, like,
Yeah.
lesson, I think.
And I think that's kind of what's
Yeah.
good. Like I did another one when I was younger at Westmead. I don't remember what that one was. It was something to do with an exercise bike. But I think as a heart kid, obviously there's a lot of things that you feel like you can't do, and then you do those types of studies and you're like, actually, yeah, I can. Like I think it's really interesting and fun. CH Fit was fun.
That's it. It was fun, wasn't it? It was really good. I would, definitely recommend for like one-time people because I think it helps them, but it also helped me a lot. And now I'm a happy gym girly these days, which I was
Yeah.
never before. Could not
I
have
think-
been it worse.
I think before CH Fit, yeah, I'd gone to the gym maybe like once or twice, whereas now I go like 3 times a week, sometimes 2 times a week, depending on work.
Then I made friends at the gym, which I was like, this is so weird. Like the gym bros are like being nice to me, and now I know their names and what they do for work. So it was really weird. It's very weird, but takes all types. But I want to know, so you're working as a town planner in Sydney, which is really cool. So you're doing that for 3 years.
Yeah.
Explain to me what town planning is in a major city and what do you enjoy most about this work?
Okay, yeah. Well, so yeah, I've been a town planner for 3 years and I worked in 3 different levels of planning, in terms of like state, council, and then I've also worked in private. So pretty much what the type of planning I do is we've pretty much like there are legislations and rules and different development codes that people have to follow when they want to build something. And we pretty much read the plans that they develop for their house, for a major site, for whatever they want, for a park. And we pretty much tell them, like, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do, this is how supportive we are of it, this is what we want to see in the future. So it's just kind of more like, what way do we want Sydney to go in the future? And basically just telling people what they can and can't do for their houses or other stuff. It's really interesting because a lot of people don't really know what we do and it's hard to explain. But yeah, no, it's just, it's interesting, especially for Sydney, like, because it's, I know for Sydney specifically, they want to have, 3 cities. Sydney is one, Parramatta is another, and I think Penrith is the third. I'm not entirely sure. I know Parramatta and the Sydney are too. So, they're putting focus on it and trying to build these new cities. But I guess I love it because I get to talk to new people. I get to explore new areas. Like the council that I worked in, I had never heard of before I worked there. And because it's more in like the outer skirts of Sydney, down in southwest Sydney. And, I think I would say I love that area. It's such a nice area. Whereas I don't think I ever would have thought that if I hadn't have worked in planning. Like, you learn a lot of cool things about different areas. Yeah.
And I can imagine it's like a lot of different things as well to have like legislation and then like working with contractors and community. Like I feel like every day would be different. Like you've got a lot on your plate and a lot of different things.
Yeah, every day can be very different. And also every job is very different. Like each level that I've worked in have been very different from the last. Private was very developer based. So it was kind of more supporting them and what they wanted to build. Whereas like council and state, it's more like, okay, well, how can we help the greater community? Rather than the individual, which is like, it's interesting. And you get to meet a lot of interesting people. Some people who want to argue about really small things, and some people who just take everything on board. Like it's really interesting, and I guess not a lot of workplaces you get to do that.
Yeah, that's really unique. And I suppose what's next for you? Like, do you have anything exciting coming up? Like any cool projects that you're working on? Any travel plans?
Not really. I got back from the Maldives 2 weeks ago. I'm taking a bit of a break from traveling,
Oh, that's me, Melbourne.
focusing on my career because I had just pretty much started a new job. So focusing on my new town planning job. Yeah, that's pretty much it for now. I do want to hopefully, travel in the
Congratulations.
future. I'd also love to, buy a house in Sydney with how affordable it is. But yeah, no.
Well, like, congratulations on the new job. I feel like, yeah, you need like 6 months to settle into a new job before you can like think
Yeah.
about something else. But
Yeah, exactly.
that sounds really exciting. Great. Oh, well, look, that is everything. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for being so vulnerable and so open and telling us about yourself and your heart. We're really, really thankful. And hopefully we can catch up with you soon.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. It was fun.
The information on this podcast is not a substitute for medical advice from your doctor or healthcare team. Always talk to your doctor about matters that affect your health or your family's health.